Hi guys, it is Samantha and I am back today with a book review for you guys. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Acts of King Arthur and His Noble Knights by John Steinbeck. The Acts of King Arthur and His Noble Knights is an Arthurian retelling by the wonderful John Steinbeck. I love Arthurian legends and I love John Steinbeck, so needless to say, I was very excited to read this book. Unfortunately, it did not quite live up to the expectations that I had for it. Steinbeck definitely followed Sir Thomas Malory's form from Le Morte d'Arthur. So the story starts out with Uther and it follows his transgressions before moving on to Arthur himself and his ascension to the throne and his relationship with Merlin, meeting Guinevere, the Knights of the Round Table, and then finishing up with Lancelot. However, this book actually is incomplete. John Steinbeck never actually finished writing this. He ended up setting it down and he passed away before he was actually able to finish writing all of the stories that would have made up this volume. So if you're familiar in any way with Arthurian stories of any kind, then you are probably pretty familiar with the type of stories that John Steinbeck included in this book because they are completely based on Sir Thomas Malory's own work. So you have the Sword in the Stone type of the story, you have Sir Gawain and Lancelot and Guinevere and all of that stuff, and Merlin and his influence on Arthur and the people in his court. All of that is definitely in here. When I first started this book, I honestly thought that John Steinbeck would actually be adopting this into his own sort of way of writing. I thought that he would be doing a complete retelling, kind of taking his own spin and perspective on the stories that Sir Thomas Malory laid down in Le Morte d'Arthur, sort of like other retellings that you might have encountered throughout the years, such as T.H. White's The Once and Future King, or those Gerald Morris Squires Tales books, all of those books that are retellings. I thought it would be sort of like this, his take on the traditional Arthurian legend. However, this book actually seemed to be reading more like a translation of Sir Thomas Malory's works instead of an adoption into the author's own style and thought and imagination. There is a foreword to this work that John Steinbeck wrote, and it sort of talks about Sir Thomas Malory's King Arthur and what those stories mean to him, how they got him into reading, and how they got him into writing is kind of what started it all for him. And you can tell that it very much means, these stories very much mean a lot to John Steinbeck, that it shaped a lot of his literary history, his career. So after reading that, before starting the book, I honestly anticipated that he would sort of be creating this book sort of from his imagination and putting his own style and spin on it. But it honestly took a while for John Steinbeck's own writing style to sort of shine through and for his own little spins on the story to sort of come through in the text. I did have a very hard time getting through this book. I thought that it moved really slow, particularly the first half of the book. It doesn't really start to pick up until you get to the midway point of the book when you really start to learn more about the Knights of the Round Table, particularly Sir Gawain, Ewan and Marlhart. It was a story within the book that had to do with those three knights and how they encounter three questing ladies and they separated for a year and went on their own adventures. That, in my opinion, was probably the best story of the book and the most entertaining. And oh my god! Heart attack! I don't know if you heard that, but I have a prism on my window and it just fell off and nearly killed me with a heart attack. Holy crap. It was the most humorous story, particularly with Gawain. He sort of was able to capture Gawain's sort of smartassiness, which I appreciated. And I think it was this particular story more than any of the others that really showed Steinbeck's true writing and imagination. It really shone through. It didn't feel quite as much of a regurgitation of Sir Thomas Malory's works as the other stories in the book did. The last story in the book that dealt with Sir Lancelot was better, in my opinion, than the first half of the book, the first couple stories, because this book is broken out into sections, as chapters, if you will, that have to do with different stories in Arthurian legends. So Merlin, the Wedding of King Arthur, Death of Merlin, Morgan Le Fay, things like that. So the last one is Lancelot, and I thought it was better than the first several stories, but I still wasn't as interesting as the chapter that had to do with Gawain and the other two knights. But as John Steinbeck did pass away before writing this novel, I think that it probably would have gone through a lot more edits and rewritings and things than had he been able to live and complete this work. I mean, this is pretty much, very much in its rough form. So who knows what it would have been like had it been able to go through those edits and those rewrites and things that naturally occur when you're writing a book. But the format that it is in now and the raw form it is in now does make for a very challenging read. I enjoyed it because I like Arthurian legends and I like to see John Steinbeck's take on it as much as it was in here, and I wanted to see how he adopted the stories to his own writing style. And I love Arthurian legends of any kind. It's not a horrible horrible book. It's just really, really slow. It didn't capture my attention. I did feel bored on many occasions, and it just was generally not as entertaining or as an enjoyable of a read as I was hoping it would be. Overall, I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars because I did not enjoy it as much as I wanted to. It definitely could have been better. But I do appreciate the history of this book, and I do appreciate what it meant to John Steinbeck and the work that in the research that he put into creating this text, because he did travel to England and he wrote this while he was in England, the portions that he did write before sitting it down, and then I did a lot of research, and I appreciate the amount of thought and effort he put into it, and you can tell that his heart was in it and that this meant a lot to him, so I do like the book for that reason. But in terms of a read, an entertaining read, a read that you're hoping to get a lot out of, this did not really fulfill that criteria for me, so like I said, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I would say that if you are familiar with Arthurian legends, that if you have read other Arthurian legend tales, perhaps Sir Thomas Malory's original work himself, or other just various retellings, I think that you would enjoy this book just to get another perspective on these legends, especially from the wonderful John Steinbeck. But if you are new to Arthurian legends and you haven't read very many King Arthur stories, then I would not start with this book, because I think that you probably would be put off by it and find it to be rather dull and uninteresting. But that is my review for The Acts of King Arthur and His Noble Knights by John Steinbeck. Let me know down in the comments if you read this book and what your thoughts were, and if you enjoyed it and what you did enjoy about it. Let me know just anything you would like to down in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found this review helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy reading. Bye!